Hey everyone, so in the previous video I showed you the beginnings of how to make a mini golf game utilizing Unity and Asset Forge. I mentioned that I use Asset Forge because it has a pre-built in tile set to make golf courses for video games. So I figured that would be the easiest way, the path of least resistance. And as always, when you use Asset Forge, you make the model and then up in File you choose Export. Make sure that the blocks are merged and then you just export. I know I'm going through this quickly. I already mentioned it in the last video, just kind of doing a quick catch up. But again, you can use whatever 3D modeler you want. So that's what I did. I created this second golf course. And again, I did the same thing as last time. I clicked on materials. I clicked on extract materials. That's why there's two of each now. And then I modified them in the same way as last time with the custom JPEG and PNG. Okay, so I imported the second course. What else did I do? In between videos, I took the cup and the sphere and I turned them into prefab. Not as fancy as it sounds. All that means is you took that object from the scene, you drag and drop it, and you just put it down here. Not going to do it because I already did it once. So you just drag and drop it, and then you see this prefab is created, which means I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I can now just drag and drop that prefab into another scene and use it all over again. Not so much a big deal for this particular project because there's not a whole lot to cup, but the sphere, on the other hand, is a little bit more complicated. You know, like we added the rigid body, changed some of the values. So that one I also took, dragged and drop it down here. And then once I did, I renamed it to golf ball. So I took a couple of the objects and turned them into prefabs. And then the last thing I did in between videos, I just renamed the scene. When you create a new project, the scene that is created is called sample scene. I renamed it to 1, as in it's the first green. Okay, so that catches up to what I did in between videos. So now let's look at what we're going to do in this one. We're going to probably do just two things. One, we're going to show you how to add new scenes, so new golf courses. And then we're going to show you how to start working with certain traps, such as, or certain hazards, and one of them will be a sand trap. So let's go ahead and create a new scene. So File, New Scene. And now that we've created a new scene, we're just going to take that model, drag and drop it into the scene. And now we can just drag and drop the golf ball so we don't have to reinvent that. So already this is moving a lot quicker. And then we can drag the cup. It's not quite in the right place, so we can just move that over there. And it most likely won't be in the right place because presumably every golf course is going to be of a different size. So we would not expect it to be in the same place, in the proper place, I should say. Yeah, okay, so that's lined up under it. So just like that, this golf course should work. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to save this. So what you do is you go to File, you go to Save, and then it'll bring up the navigation window, navigate to the Unity folder, save the scene. I'll do that and be right back. Okay, so I named it 2. So if you come down here to the scene folder, so as long as you saved it in this folder when you were in the Windows Navigator, it'll be there. It doesn't have to be in the scenes folder. It can be just in the asset folder, but it's good to be organized, which for the most part, I'm not. Okay, so you have two scenes. For loading to work, the scenes need to be in the final build. So you go up to File, you go up to Build Settings, and you can add the open scene, but you only have one open scene, so it's just easy enough to drag and drop. Unless there's some specific coding, the scene that's on the top will run first. So the top scene you probably would want to be like a title screen or something like that. Not going to get into that this early in the project. This is really just doing the basics. So you just drag and drop the two scenes up there. And now this will almost work. So we said that in scene 1, the cup has a script that says what to do when the golf ball collides with it. So if we go to that, all it said was if the object that has collided with it, then debug log load level. So we're just checking to see that collision was working. Now we want to actually have it load. So how do we do that? Two things. First of all, we need to add a namespace. So at the top, using Unity Engine.Scene Management. If you don't do that, Unity won't recognize the code that I'm about to use. Down here, you can leave the debug if you want because we're still such in an early testing phase, or you can get rid of it, doesn't really matter. Okay, so scene manager dot load scene 2. So pretty straightforward. It's saying load the scene that's named 2. Now, I do want to point out, since this script, presuming we're going to use the script attached to this to all the cups, because since that cup is a prefab, then that means the script is attached to all the cups. That means every single cup will load the second scene. So this will work for our purposes going from scene 1 to scene 2, but any other scene would keep loading scene 2, including scene 2. So this is placeholder. This is just to show you how the basics works. What we're eventually going to do, we're probably going to change this into a variable. And that's why I'm naming it 1, 2, and then presumably I'll go 3, 4, 5. You can just check to see what a variable is. We can increment a certain variable, and then this would be the variable that gets incremented. So rather than having a constant here, it would be a variable. So we save that, and that, I believe, should be all it takes to load scene 2 if I have not forgotten anything. So let's just save this, make sure there was no changes. And it's already facing forward by default, and space is what gives us power. So let's try 9. Nope, wasn't enough. And I don't think I put in a way to decrease power yet, so seriously. There we go. And sure enough, it worked because this is the second scene. Camera's in completely the wrong place because I hadn't aligned it yet, but you could see that now you can load a different scene. And so that was really one of the few things that we had not yet done in the previous video. So now you can go from golf course to golf course. And now it's really just the major thing that's missing, of course, is camera control. The camera does not follow the ball. Probably will do that in the next video. But in this video, I said I also wanted to handle the beginning of traps. So let's add a sand trap. So if you notice, I put an indentation here, okay? But I did not fill it already because I don't want this to be treated like the rest of the object. Because remember, the entire object has... Actually, I didn't do that yet, did I? Okay, so quick refresher. Let's save this, make sure to make a change. Scene 1, for the course object, we added the ball physics mat, okay? So the problem is every single part of this has the same physics. Well, if we want sand in here to act differently, then we can't have it be part of the same object because it'd have the same physics mat to it. So let's first add the physics mat to this. So this needs a collider, I believe. Physics, mesh collider, yeah, material, and we'll add the physics mat. Okay. Now what we're going to do, we're going to go to game object, 3D object, and we're just going to use a cube. Again, you can use whatever you want for the models. This is really just for demonstrative purposes. I actually should have left it there. Let's just shrink this a little bit. So like 0.9, 0.9, and we only need this to be like 0.2. All right, so, and that looks pretty good. That way there's like a slight indentation. And we want this to respond differently. If you don't like it being a solid color, just like a gray if you want, you can put the plaster on it, give it its own texture. And you can see this folder was dynamically created when I did that. And then we'll just give it like a yellow color there. So now when the ball travels along this, we want it to work differently. Okay. So what we'll do for its physics map material, so this one has dynamic friction and static friction of 0.6. So let's create additional friction. So we'll create a new, so right click, create physics material, and we'll call this sand trap. Click on that. And we'll take the sand trap, put it in the material. We'll have bounciness be 0 in this case. And let's see how much dynamic friction we can create. Let's try 5 and 5. I'm not quite sure what the increments of this mean, but obviously bigger, higher is more. So let's also move this forward so I don't have to guess. Now, if everything works correctly, that should slow it down when it hits it. So if we do just say 2 spaces and then we click, see how it's only stopped? So that's probably a little bit too much. But let's really get it going. Now that time it jumped probably because the ball has bounce physics on it, which we said doesn't make too much of a difference, although in that case it does because it's actually popped up into the air. So as you can see, that worked. That it slows it down when it touches it. So we'll just, you can see it just comes to stop. And actually, let's put it right in the sand trap. That might be a better demonstration. Well, there is a little bit of an edge here. So I want to make sure that I'm being honest about why it stopped. Okay, so now if we run this, hit a couple times, you can see it's definitely not moving as fast. And let's go to the sand trap. Let's bump that friction up even more and see just how extreme this can be. So I hit it like 5, 6 times and you can see it barely budged. So that was 8. And you can see it's just about done when it reaches that incline. So if I normally did 8, you'll see just how far it will go here. See? It makes a huge difference. So by using the physics material, you can slow down the object, okay? I do want to mention one thing though, and that is this is not the only way to do it. What you can also do is, since the golf ball has angular drag and drag, what you can do is you can check for a collision with this and then increase the drag and angular drag on the ball. So you can do this a couple ways. So you can either just use the built-in physics and say, okay, this has more friction, or you can manually intervene and say, no, this has more angular drag and more drag. And the latter, using the rigid body on the ball and you manually changing it, again, gets back to what I said about how you can kind of tweak and fiddle with the physics to get it to respond how you want it to. Maybe it may not be realistic physics, but maybe it serves your purpose, that there's something that you're trying to accomplish, because again, the physics that's built into Unity I find is kind of lacking. So I think that's about it for this video. I really didn't mean for this to be very long, and it shouldn't be. I think we're only maybe at the 10 or 12 minute mark tops, but that already did it. So now you've seen how to create multiple scenes. You've seen how to create multiple scenes and how to add traps. So we showed you how to do a sand trap. In the next one, I'll probably look at doing portals, and we'll also do probably the camera control. So maybe I'll do the camera control as its own video and then portals. But again, you're just kind of building on what you already have. You're just adding. Even this isn't really new functionality. We already looked at physics mat. Now you're just creating a separate physics a separate physics material. So again, it's really not anything new. It's just repurposing what we've already looked at and seeing how to make it suit the context of what's going on. In this case, the context is a sand trap. So I think that's going to about do it for this video. I hope these videos continue to be useful to you, and please enjoy the rest of your day and continue to let me know if you want to see more.